And here we go. Somewhere in between a long time and a good time. This is the Backroad, In Between Media's Fantasy NASCAR YouTube series. I'm Seth Woolcock, one of your regular co-hosts. Joined by me is my good pal, my NASCAR connoisseur, Jared Bakaysa. You can find him on the Twitter bird at PKJared9. Guys, it's already September. The fantasy NASCAR season is dwindling down. Fantasy football is in full swing. But we're going to shift gears back to NASCAR a little bit today. Jared, can you believe it's already September, man, and the NASCAR season is, just a couple of weeks or months away from being done here, man?
No, it's super crazy. Like it just seems like yesterday we were doing our season preview show, and here we are. We got 8 weeks left in the NASCAR season, and unlike other sports, like NASCAR is really only off a little bit at the end of November, off December, off January, and they're right back in February. But those times off just seem like super long. But then we got racing basically all throughout the year. But yeah, it's been super crazy how long this season's been, but also how quick this season's gone.
Yeah, there's been a lot of money to be made out there on DraftKings, Monkey Knife Fight, wherever you guys have been playing fantasy NASCAR this season. We're going to continue to help you along the way with that. Today on the show, we're going to catch you up from the last couple of races, what's been happening in the NASCAR playoffs so far, and really what you need to know moving forward in these next 3 or 4 races coming up. Like we said, there's money to be won. There's fantasy leagues to be won. Bragging rights are out there of all sorts right now. So we want to get you guys dialed in. Jared, I think we should start this thing out, man, with some byway breakdown. What do you think?
Yes, sir. Let's roll into it.
All right, guys, byway breakdown today. I want to break down the last 2 races of the NASCAR season. Jared, it's really kind of been a whirlwind, but a lot of the same here heading into the playoffs. The last 2 races, you were obviously at this last Richmond race. Dominated once again by Joe Gibbs. What do you think we've seen the last 2 races? Obviously, Denny Hamlin comes victorious the week before. Now it's his teammate Martin Truex after Denny Hamlin won stage 1 and 2 here in Richmond the other night.
I think it's just basically the Joe Gibbs has really knocked it out of the park with the 750 horsepower package races. You go back into the spring, like Truex won Phoenix, Truex won Martinsville, Truex won Darlington. Who else? Truex just won this weekend at Richmond. You had Denny Hamlin win at Darlington, which was another 750 track. And I know Eric Almirola won the 750 package race at New Hampshire, but Kyle Busch and Martin Truex both basically got taken out early, and those guys were primed for a good day. So Christopher Bell finished second in that race. So I think Joe Gibbs in general has just really knocked it out of the park with that package. And I think they're really focusing on that strictly because the season finale race and the race before that are both 750 horsepower races. So I think they brought their cards out for that, really spent time in the off season working on that, and it's really paid off this season. And we have another 750 horsepower race coming up this week, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them doing well there again.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun this year, man, because I feel like every year it's kind of crazy. Like the competition elevates to a different level with these top 16 guys. All of a sudden, they are the top 16. Running at the front every week, and really the most competitive cars, most, guys taking risks on the track to get that field position. We saw some guys get scraped up in Darlington. Actually, Michael McDowell ends up towards the end of the pack. Kyle Busch kind of got involved with that a little bit too. Chase Elliott. So there's definitely a little bit of shakeup there that week. Right now, below the cut line, you have guys like Alex Bowman sitting there at 0 below the cut line. Tyler Reddick -5. Willie Byron, who's looked stellar all season long, couple of W's for him, -18 below the cut line. And old Michael McDowell sitting in 16th, -38, all but a win away from probably being eliminated from this playoffs. Jared, when you kind of look at this field a little bit, heading into the next races, we'll break down more of the specifics of the upcoming tracks, but kind of just looking at the playoffs right now, like, from a fantasy NASCAR perspective, is there any guy that you see in or around this cut line that you might be targeting for your roster, who could make a difference here in the last race or 2?
I would probably say one of the Hendrick guys, whether it's William Byron or Alex Bowman. Hendrick's been strong all season. They're going to bring their best stuff there this week to Bristol because I'm sure obviously Mr. Hendrick's not going to want two of his guys out of there. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
yeah, for sure.
he's going to want those guys both like working together or whatever. However, whatever they can bring to get those guys in there. So I'm like eyeing up those guys to probably run well. But really, this is just an interesting like cutoff race for everyone because it's a short track. It's one of the fastest short tracks in America.
Yeah. Yep.
Everyone's going to be on edge. Every position's going to matter. And really, you just got to be on edge because, if someone else wrecks and their laps are only 15 seconds at Bristol, so you could easily get taken out by someone else's mishap. So spotters are going to have to be on watch. The drivers themselves are going to have to take care of their car, have to execute on pit road because you saw Kyle Busch basically blew a win this past week at Richmond for a speeding penalty. So
yeah,
yep. So these guys they just gotta come prepared here come this week for whether it's pit stops and just staying clean on the track. And I think if those guys execute, like I said, I'm really eyeing up either William Byron or Alex Bowman just because I think they're going to want to keep Hendricks rolling this season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens after this week as well from a fantasy NASCAR perspective because, let's say that, one or two of those Hendrick cars are eliminated there at the bottom. That leaves Joe Gibbs with a 4-car advantage heading into the top 12 here. Yeah, your guys, Jared. But, I mean, really, it puts the pressure on guys like Kevin Harvick and, even the Penske guys. Like, they're probably all three going to get through here. But, like, still puts the pressure a little more on this. Like, Kevin Harvick, to me, is a guy I'm probably going to be targeting after this week because he's going to play, like, a little bit of hero driving, really try to wheel it for his team. Because, I mean, yeah, Eric Almirola probably going to get through. There's a chance he's getting through this next week. But, Kevin Harvick's going to put the team on his back like he has to.
Yeah, especially without not winning this year, he's definitely going to have to do something to get – because if you don't have any wins, he's not getting those extra playoff points for the next round. So, yeah, you could probably scrape through this first round here, but if you don't start like winning stages and getting those wins, it's going to run out of luck, basically, is what's going to happen. Because you see with guys like Larson, who already clinched this week, which was kind of expected, honestly, but you saw how dominant he was this year, and winning stages at Darlington really helped him get there. Like Denny Hamlin winning stages, even though he didn't win until a couple weeks ago at Darlington, like at least he had those stage win points and all the almost the regular season championship. But he was at least like up there running up front, getting stages consistency. But you see Harvick, like he's not winning stages like he used to. And he's not getting those wins. So, like, yeah, he can get past the first round. But like I just said, I think time's eventually going to catch up. And those guys that are running up front, winning stages, getting those playoff points, those are the guys that are going to at least have a little bit more breathing room with their points situation. So,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Jared, let's break down what we can expect these next 4 races coming up here in our next segment, Horizon Forecast.
Yes, sir. We're heading to Bristol, Tennessee, the fastest half mile in America. I will be attending that race, so I'm super excited to see how it plays out. And it'll actually be kind of interesting from a fan standpoint because unlike watching on TV where you can see on the side ticker where all the points and stuff are, I'm really not going to know what the point situation is unless I remember at Richmond they didn't really show any of the playoff point situations. I didn't really hear anything besides Elliott, who was checking his phone every once in a while. But I'm not really going to have a good idea on who's running where or where this guy's going to need to be. And I know my boy Kyle Busch is only 8 above the cut line, but that could easily be diminished here this week. So I'm not really going to know if that's going to be. I think that adds a little bit more of an excitement thing for me because I'm going to watch the race, then check on the points, and be like, "Ooh, okay." So.
Yeah, it's definitely always crazy here. Like I'm definitely excited to see, kind of going back to that fantasy point of view again, is like what happens when one of these guys near or around the cut line gets a lap down, gets 2 lap downs. Like how much are they willing to risk it to try to get back on that lead lap? Because I mean, dude, if you get a couple laps down here at Bristol, like the good thing is you can catch up because it is only half a mile. But like we've seen cars in the past go down with an issue early and not be able to wheel themselves back in. So I'm definitely curious about that. Jared, moving past Bristol a little bit, what do you see happening at these tracks like Las Vegas, Talladega, Charlotte? Obviously, Talladega is anyone's game here in 3 weeks, but Las Vegas seems like it's been kind of, I don't want to say a cookie cutter track, but I feel like we kind of know who the players are there each and every year.
It's one of the better mile-and-a-half tracks we have with that 550 package, but what I really see happening in that round is probably a Larson-dominated Las Vegas race. I think he's going to just probably win both stages, if not the race, basically get enough points where he can lock himself in the next week and then not have to worry about Talladega. So even Chase Elliott too, like I think Hendrick is more dominant here at those 550 tracks you've seen this year. That's where a lot of Larson's wins have come. You got the Charlotte Roval coming up. That's basically Chase Elliott's racetrack, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him win there. And Talladega, like you said, it's basically a wild card, and that's just going to be anyone. That's going to be anyone's there. But really, at Talladega, all the Fords have been really good at restrictor plate races. We've had 3 Fords win the 3 restrictor plate races so far. Brad Keselowski or Joey Logano almost won the 500 if they wouldn't have gotten their wreck. Yep. But Penske's really done good at Daytona and Talladega this year. So those are guys. The Ford guys, like I said, like Keselowski or Blaney or Logano, those guys are the ones you're going to be looking for at Talladega. And that's about it. What I think of Talladega.
Yeah. So my kind of takeaways from Talladega there, hearing you and my own opinion a little bit as well, is like you're going to want the Penske Fords likely in your lineup. You're going to want some of these lesser known Fords as well, maybe a Michael McDowell and Erica Almirola, someone like that who still has something to compete for. So look for guys like that to kind of take your dart throws on a little bit. Las Vegas here. Are you interested? Obviously, you think it's going to be a Kyle Larson dominated race, so get him in your lineups, guys. He's someone we're willing to pay up for in Las Vegas. But how do you feel about guys like Kurt Busch? I mean, we've seen it before, Jared, time and time again. Like Kurt Busch steps up in the moment of need. Las Vegas last year. What do you think, man? Are there any other guys like Kurt Busch that you might be targeting here?
I actually like Kurt Busch. I agree with Kurt Busch there. He was running top 5 at Richmond before his tire went down. And who knows, if he would have raced that whole thing, he probably could have been a contender with the Gibbs cars. We just didn't really get to see how his car would have been on the long runs. And like you just said, like Las Vegas last year, what's Kurt Busch got to lose this year? I think Kurt Busch and Ross Chastain both of this year have been really running well the second half of the year, and I think it's strictly because Chip Ganassi's team shutting down at the end of the year. I think those guys are just giving it all they got because I think they want to try to – Kurt obviously in the playoffs and Ross isn't in the playoffs, but I think those guys are both pushing Ross himself to try to get a win. Yeah. Ross himself trying to get a win for Chip. And I think Kurt Busch, obviously, I think he's trying to get the championship this year, and he's got 2 really good tracks coming up, so – Kurt Busch would be a guy I'd probably want to slide into my lineup, at least at Bristol. Bristol's one of his better tracks. I think he finished second a couple years ago, so I think he won. He won the 2018 Bristol night race.
Yes, he did. He did.
So Kurt Busch is one to watch this week. Plus, with how the point situation too is, he's going to be sending it this week. So I wouldn't.
Oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kurt up there, and then he's going back to his home track in Las Vegas in a couple weeks. So he's going to run well there too, I would assume. And it's a mile-and-a-half track. He won Atlanta earlier this year in a mile-and-a-half out of nowhere. No one was really expecting him to win there. So I think Chip Ganassi Racing maybe have found something at the mile-and-a-half. So I think Kurt Busch is a guy to watch these next 2 weeks, actually.
100% agree. Jared, we're going to break down more of our sleepers and keepers coming up here in our next segment, Sleepers and Keepers. Jared, I want to hear from you first, man. Who are you dialing up here in your lineup as a keeper moving forward here? Someone who you've kind of been riding with these last couple of weeks that you want to keep on that train?
I'm going to be biased, and I'm going to go with Kyle Busch this week. He didn't run bad at Richmond. I mean, he was leading and then had that speeding penalty, but he's above the cut line by 8 points. He's going to be dry. It's Bristol. It's Kyle Busch has a lot of wins at Bristol. He's ticked off after last week and the last couple weeks with incidents happening with him. And you feel the fire in Kyle Busch, and he's just going to go out there, dominate the race, and just be like, hey, I'm back, basically, And I think that Bristol is a really good racetrack for him. Obviously, we talked about earlier how Joe Gibbs Racing has done really good at 750 tracks. Hamlin's locked in, Truex is locked in, Christopher Bell's, if he has a good run, he's probably going to be locked in. But I think hopefully Kyle Busch can maybe get top tire Joe Gibbs Racing equipment this week. So I would say I'm going to be biased. Like I said, I'm going to be biased and say I think Kyle Busch is a keeper this week. He knows the situation this year. I think last year he kind of knew like the writing was on the wall. I'm not really going to advance, so I'm just going to do what I have to do. But I think this year it's like, hey, I have a couple wins this year. I'm giving it all I got. I'm trying to go out here and win. I think it's going to be one of those statement wins too. Like it's going to be a packed crowd. Nobody really likes Kyle Busch. I found that out at a very young age, and even this week in Richmond, hearing all the boos there, I just think it'd be awesome. He just goes out there and wins it and calls it a day. So awesome, that's who I'm keeping, and I'll even move on the sleeper. This go against my bias or whatever, but I think one of the sleeper picks are Joey Logano in these next couple weeks, someone you want in your lineup. I know he hasn't had the best season statistically this year, and he's kind of like, he's not winning like stages or dominating races like you're used to seeing a Joey Logano do. And I think I read somewhere too, he's having like the worst statistical season since 2016, I think.
Oh, wow.
And his only win this year is on Bristol dirt, which it's Bristol dirt. It doesn't really count as anything related here. But you got Bristol coming up. Joey Logano is usually like one of those hit or miss guys, but I would think like with how well the other Penske guys have been doing, like Ryan Blaney's been doing recently, I think he's going to get going. Las Vegas is usually a Joey Logano type track. He has a couple wins there. Logano is also he's kind of like a low-key good road course racer. He was leading the Daytona road course earlier this year before Christopher Bell caught up to him, but he's always seems to like keep his nose clean at those road course races and just has like some raw speed there every once in a while to finish in the top 5, top 10 every now and then. And then Talladega, like I was saying also earlier, Penske's been doing really good here at the restrictor plate track. So Brad Keselowski won Talladega in the spring. Ryan Blaney won Daytona. Wouldn't surprise me to see Joey Logano win at Talladega. So he's like one of those sleeper picks that I would probably want to have in your lineups these next coming weeks.
Yeah, definitely someone I'm willing to pay up for over the next couple of weeks. Like we know the iron's going to be striking hot for this Penske crew moving forward. We saw it last year. Joey Logano was one of the first to secure himself, in the Final Four, I believe. So, I mean, I'm expecting a big win from either Logano or Keselowski or Blaney in the next few weeks. So look forward to that. Jared, I think those are 2 great picks, man. I do want to go into my keeper pick, and it's no surprise, guys. It's been my keeper for a couple months straight now. I was looking around for other guys who I could, claim as a keeper today for the show, but I cannot, guys. I cannot get over what we've been seeing out of Ross Chastain these last few months, man. Jared, it's been crazy. I mean, we've seen 8 top 10s from him this season, 2 top 10s in a row now. Before I go into, I have a little game to play. I want to play a game. But before we play the game, man, what has just been your NASCAR fan impression of what you've seen from Chastain these last few weeks, or last few months? Because I've been blown away this summer.
I think it just goes back to Chip Ganassi shutting down. I think, Chip gave Ross his real first full-time shot at a Cup ride. And I think he's just using everything he's got to go out there and try to win, make it impress, basically like a big thank you to Chip Ganassi, and just prove to the NASCAR world, hey, I'm here to stay for a while, because I know he just got that deal with Trackhouse for next year with really no sponsors, but he almost won there at Darlington. I think he just used up his tires a little bit too early, but in general, he was running up there. I know he wasn't really a top 5 car at Richmond, but he was always up in the top 10. I didn't really see him ever fade out of there, and he was always at least staying at pace with everyone else in that top 10. So, and even the past couple weeks leading up to that, he's just been going balls out. He's been flying it. He's been wheeling it, basically, is what you would say. I can't really think of another driver that's really had the turnaround season that Chastain has had, because I can look at a lot of guys that have fallen off the cliff, but guys moving up is someone moving forward and even into the future, to next season. I think he's just going to have a bunch of momentum rolling into next season. I think he's just going to be one of those top guys, a regular top 5, top 10 guy every single week.
I agree. I've become a Ross Chastain fan this season, Jared, just watching him drive. And the thing I love about him is he's an aggressive driver, but he's not an aggressive stupid to the point where sometimes Ricky Stenhouse feels that way, and Logano maybe in his youth felt that way. But sometimes he puts it in there maybe a little more than he should, but I just enjoy watching the guy race overall. And even to see these last 2 races, he's not in the playoffs and he's wheeling it because that's how much like this guy cares. You know what I mean? So like if I could advise anyone, like Chastain, he's going to be out of the top 16 likely for these next couple starts, or he's not going to get any top 10 starts, but he's a guy will move up, and I definitely think he'll have a couple top 10s left in the season. So to get that move up draft bonus point in DK, man, that's huge. So I'm going to keep with Ross Chastain. Just want to play a quick game for you here, Jared, to see how good Ross Chastain has been this season. Who has more top 5s this season? Ross Chastain or Tyler Reddick? Playoff Tyler Reddick.
Probably Ross Chastain.
Yeah, 3-2. 3-2 Chastain. More top 10s. Ross Chastain or combined Eric Almirola and Michael McDowell?
Definitely Ross Chastain.
Ross, it's 8-8. It's 8-8. That one's tied. But, 2 playoff drivers, he has as many top 10s as them combined. More laps ran on the track. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain.
Probably Ross Chastain on that one also.
Yeah, it's Ross Chastain. Like, I know a lot of people, that's not really a stat we normally use too much, is laps ran, but like at least it means he's not getting a lot of DNFs. He's staying out there on the track as much as he can.
Yeah, it's really showing that he's just keeping his car clean and just running consistent, and I think that also holds a lot of value for fantasy owners and even like team owners too. Like that's showing Chip like, hey, I can take care of my car, and that's showing like sponsors like, all right, this is a guy that's not going to be in wrecks and everything. And like kind of to piggyback with your thing on how you're saying like, he drives aggressively, but I think having Kurt Busch as a teammate this year, who's had a very strong history with aggressive driving, I think Kurt's probably helped him a lot behind the scenes, where I think he's trying to he probably has explained to him how hard to push your car and when to push your car. And I think you've seen that a lot out of Ross this year, just strictly because what the stats that you just pulled up, he's keeping his car clean. He's running decent every week. And I think now it's just, he has a whole season, almost a whole season under his belt with the team, and he's ready to go.
100% agree, Jared. I want to move to my sleeper pick here, man. And this is a little more of a gut call, I'll be honest with you. And it's Alex Bowman. And I know we don't have a residential Alex Bowman fan truther on the show, Elliot Hicks, today. But I mean, it's kind of been a down couple of months for Alex Bowman after, a 3-win season, got them early in the year. Out of his last 7 races, only 2 of them have been in the top 10. And he's right below that cut line, as we said earlier. I think this kind of goes back to almost what you were saying about Kyle Busch getting that premier equipment for JGR. I think right now, if Hendricks wants to make a move and send 3 or 4 guys into the next round, it's going to have to be on the back of Alex Bowman getting some good equipment. So, he's never been a great Bristol driver. We know that it's not always been in the cards for him, but he's better than people think at Bristol. And if he gets past there, I'm really excited because I think he could tear it up in the round of 12, get to that top 8 again. You remember last year he had that great Las Vegas run, almost came home with the checkered flag. If it wasn't maybe for a bad crew chief call there. And Dega, he's actually been in the top 10 these last couple times as well. And he always starts off, like if there is qualifying at Talladega, and I'm not sure if there will be, Jared, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head. There will not be?
No. I think the only practice and qualifying they're going to have in the playoffs is the last race.
Okay. Well, because, I mean, we've seen it with Alex Bowman. These restrictor plate tracks, for whatever reason, he's really good at qualifying there, but I think that still translates to the race as well. And he's not as bad of a road course racer as we kind of think. He's good at Charlotte. The Roval is a different challenge, but we'll see how it plays out. But I'm just calling my shot, man. I'm calling my shot with Alex Bowman here. He's a guy in that mid-tier that I'm throwing in those DK lineups, man. I think he's a guy who's able to hit, and he's still got a lot to prove too. Like, you can't just let a 3-win season go down the drain. I know that's pretty narrative-based for some fantasy analysis, but that's where I'm at right now.
I mean, if I had to be biased also, I would say I would take Alex Bowman getting in over William Byron. I think I know it's. I mean, those two both honestly have like kind of fallen off a little bit because I
Yeah.
know like William had that top 10 streak going real early in the season,
Oh yeah.
but he's kind of been like just like tight. He's been like just there for out of the Hendrick four. Like obviously Larson and Chase Elliott are your guys who are going to probably continue to make it until like possibly the last round. But I would say probably Bowman at least strictly because of the fact that he's been able to finish races this year. Like I know even in the earlier in the season, but I think I would rather have Alex Bowman over William Byron moving forward.
100%, man. 100%. Like I said, he's going to be one of those mid-tier, upper echelon guys that I'm going to put in those lineups. Guys, if you do have any questions, anything with fantasy related, if you're going to be at Bristol this weekend, give Jared a shout out on Twitter. Give myself a shout out on Twitter. We'll be around for you guys. Jared, any final thoughts here, man, as we head down this stretch, man?
I'm just really super excited for Bristol this coming week. I'm going to meet all the guys that we've had on our show are going to be there. All the people that I've been guest stars on are going to be there. So it's going to be really nice for me. And basically this is like my rookie year in the NASCAR community. I get to meet all the people that I've been interacting with all season. So like, this is like my kind of like my Super Bowl for the NASCAR community. So I can't wait to meet everyone there. I hope I get to get some pictures with everyone and just enjoy the whole weekend.
Awesome, Jared. Well, man, it's been a pleasure watching your fantasy NASCAR and your NASCAR journey this year, bro. Thankful for everything you do for us over here in Between Media. Guys, we will be back in another month with another episode of the Backroad. We're going to round out the season with you guys here at In Between Media. If you guys need any fantasy football advice or fantasy fighting advice throughout the season, you know where to find us, guys, at inbetweenmedia.com. As mentioned before, you can follow myself on Twitter at between_SethFF and my guy Jared that way at PKJared9. Jared, thanks so much for your analysis, man. Thanks to all our listeners throughout the entire season. We're excited to see what happens here in the next few weeks, starting with Bristol this weekend. Keep it in between, y'all.